Hey, it's Tim Kawakami here. This is not an emergency episode of 49ers Plus Minus. It is an emergency update of 49ers Plus Minus with Matt Barrows of The Athletic. We have recorded already kind of a season preview where the 49ers roster is, what we think they're going to do for the 53 and the 46 and all these things going into week one in Seattle. That's next. Listen to that afterwards. This is an update as of 8 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday. Report from ESPN's Adam Schefter, who clearly was the guy who reported that Jauan Jennings won a new contract and would ask to be traded at the start of camp. Now, finally, he's back in it. I'll be a little cynical. Interestingly, that now he's back in it. Didn't report a single thing until now, but that's okay. We understand where this is coming from, and it's information. It's good information. 49ers actually agreed to a $3 million incentive structure, increasing it for Jauan Jennings as part of him coming back in. Also, part of the report is, and that's playtime incentives, which usually is based on percentage of snaps. I've seen like Kyler Murray has like a 70% playtime incentive for the regular season, then also in added percentages for playoff wins or NFC Championship game snaps. I would imagine it's something similar for Jauan Jennings. He played 73% of the snaps last season. I would imagine it's very close to that. Schefter also reports that the 49ers offered a multi-year deal to Jennings that Jennings declined, which is so agenty. Barrows, I got to say, it's so agenty. That's the most agenty thing I've ever seen in my life on this one. But I'll try to stop right here, Barrows. Good for Drew Barrows, Drew Rosenhaus.
I wish I was getting a cut of this deal. Yeah.
For him. He negotiated. He made sure there was nothing from the national reporters until this happened. Good, listen, more money for Jauan Jennings. That's good. I didn't think the 49ers were going to do much of anything. We'll see what this really is, what the triggers are. But hey, it's $3 million. If Jauan Jennings has a good season, he deserves the money. All power to everybody. Just get him back on the practice field and get this thing settled.
Yeah, it's $3 million plus the opportunity to hit the open market in March on a team where you can make some noise early on. You can, again, sort of prove to the world that you're deserving of being a number one receiver, a top target. And the 49ers have a history of wide receivers going bonkers when they have free agency coming up. So, I mean, you could look at it like that the 49ers are putting themselves in a position to get everything out of Jauan Jennings this year. And frankly, they need that to begin the season. It'll be interesting, when Ayuk comes back. We don't know when that is, when Demarcus Robinson comes back, whether that's going to kind of influence these numbers that we're talking about that we don't know about right now, what the incentives are. But obviously, Jauan Jennings is going to get more a share of the targets without Brandon Ayuk there and without Demarcus Robinson there. And with, last year it was Ricky Pearsall was just sort of coming into his own and didn't get a lot of targets until the end of the season. So interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what those numbers are and how they came up with them. Because it's such a complicated season at wide receiver.
I think it's going to be snap counts, percentage of snaps. And, that does put him in jeopardy. If you get hurt, you're not getting it, right? It does put that in jeopardy if the number's high enough. And I don't think this is going to be a low number. I don't think the 49ers are giving him money for nothing. But we'll see. And I think they'll want him on the field as much as possible. And if he's on the field a lot, he'll make $3 million. And that'll up him to $10.5 million. And he will be worth it. We'll see if he stays healthy. We'll see what else happens with the receiver class. But this was a rather sensible way to do this. This could have been the way they'd done this, maybe a month ago, but maybe Jauan didn't want this, or maybe there were other things going on. Maybe the 49ers were not offering it. But this was always the most sensible way. You don't go crazy on the number. They were not going to give him $20 million a year. I have a funny feeling that wasn't a multi-year offer that was worth even thinking about. If there was a multi-year offer, it might have been, hey, we'll go, we'll give you a non-guaranteed $20 million next year, and then they'll just end up cutting him anyway. So we'll see. I still think the odds are that he's not on the team next year. We'll see. That could change. A big year changes a lot of things. And it changed a lot about the relationship last year when he had the big year. So it was a deal that had to be made. It makes sense to do it. Now we'll see. If it's a snap count play and he's at like 71% going into the final game, that'll be really interesting. Do we rest?
I think I got to think that Kyle Shanahan would do him a solid in that finale.
Or Jed York might have a say on that. Who knows?
Yeah, Jed's going to take over play calling that.
No, just like, hey, well, did I deactivate? Oops, he got deactivated. We'll see, but sensible. I am just laughing at that. The agent was nowhere to be seen through any of this. No stories whatsoever from that side, from the ESPN national side, and then here all the details are out. Just very interesting to me. Maybe Drew's not happy with some of the coverage here. That's fine. Can be mad at me for saying that I didn't think they had much of a leverage at all, and frankly would have heard more from him if it was a great deal. Well, we heard from him, so that's fine. I'm cool with that. And I'm cool with Jauan making as much money as he can, because it's a tough business. You got to get it when you can. I just don't know how hot a free agent he's going to be at age 29 next year, but we'll see. But the idea of preserving his free agency is something I don't really buy. You had to do it now, I think, at 28, at 29, unless he puts up 1,200 yards. I don't know what that market is going to be for him, but we'll see. It's up to him to see, and he's got $3 million incentives to add it to it so he can say he fought for something. So all good with that. Barrows, got anything else to say about this one?
Well, only about his free agent value. He never was a speedster, so it's not like he's dealing with declining speed. And he didn't get a lot of snaps at the beginning of his career. So, wear and tear wise, I think he's still, I think he can do what he does well for, I don't know what the number is, but for, the beginning of a new contract. And yeah, I mean, if you had to make a guess right now, you'd guess that Jauan Jennings is not part of this team moving forward. And so you're left, if you're the 49ers, you're left with Brandon Ayuk, Ricky Pearsall, and Jordan Watkins. And I can just foresee some podcasts in March and April about, the 49ers needing an offensive tackle. They need an offensive tackle. And then they go wide receiver in this draft. You have 3, you need 6 wide receivers. So I see the handwriting on the wall right now, and all the angst and hair pulling out of the fan base that they're not going to take a tackle in April because they need wide receivers.
And they're going to take a running back too, right? Absolutely take a running back. All right, 49ers, just keep on being interesting. Keep forcing us to keep doing not a new show, just a topper to the show that we already recorded. We didn't really talk about Jauan Jennings or anything in there. So this is just the Jauan Jennings segment right here. And then what's coming up next is our long talk about where they are, how the roster sets up, and kind of
how great my microphone is working.
How great Barrows has come forward. I've offered him incentives to make sure that microphone comes up strong on my headphones, and it might have been my fault anyway. So that's the incentives. We've all made it. We all qualified, and we all need Drew Rosenhaus as our agent. Let's just put it that way. All right, now to the regular show, which we recorded just a few hours ago. Hey everybody, Tim Kawakami here, 49ers Plus Minus with my co-host. That's the Athletics, Matt Barrows. Wednesday, regular season, here it comes. Sunday in Seattle. 49ers had their first official real regular season practice today in sunny Santa Clara. Have made a few little roster moves, but really getting sight. Like, this is their roster for now. This is the way they're going to play it. Barrows, I was there for the locker room part of it. Had many players around. Bosa talked, Warner talked, a few, various other people talked, but those are the 2 big official ones. Kyle Shanahan talked. Just your general impressions as this team gets set to play the first game, which we can talk about. It's a big one. We've already said it. What's the general mood? What's the general feeling? Are things kind of like all set in place now after a lot of scatteredness over the last few weeks?
Yeah, for sure. They're starting to settle. And sort of the guys that are out for this week are the guys that you expected were going to be out probably when training camp started in late July. The big news, if you want to call it that, was that Jauan Jennings was practicing again. I guess that was a bit of a question mark You didn't know if the calf injury, whether it's real, whether it flared up. Remember, we were talking calf injury with Christian McCaffrey at this time a year ago. He was supposed to play against the Jets in the opener, and he did not. That doesn't seem to be what's happening with Jauan Jennings. He looked good out there. Again, I mean, we've talked about this. I think, he and Ricky Pearsall, who go through the drills together, complement each other very nicely. I think it gives them a sense of confidence that they absolutely wouldn't have had with their passing game if Jauan Jennings wasn't there. And then they did the roster move today with Marquez Valdez-Scantling being added to the active roster and Russell Gage being put on the practice squad. And Gage will probably be have that temporary elevation for game day. So your 5 receivers Sunday in Seattle are likely to be Jennings, Pearsall, MVS, Sky Moore, and Russell Gage. And you can sort of see the role that each of those guys is going to play. I tend to think that MVS will be basically the number 3 guy, the guy who gets the third most snaps. I'm not 100% confident in that. It could be Russell Gage. I'm pretty sure it won't be Sky Moore. Gage has been here. He's been here since last year on the practice squad. He was there throughout training camp. MVS, however, knows this offense pretty well. And he's got that explosion, that downfield speed. Doesn't always catch it deep downfield. We saw that when he was with the Chiefs, but he at least makes defenses respect his speed, which opens up things for Ricky Pearsall and Jauan Jennings. So I think that's how they're going to go. Do you agree with that? Do you think?
I mostly agree with that. I think that's the third receiver, the number 3 guy that Shanahan would trust, or would fit into that, but not really a slot receiver. And I know you don't have to be just a prototypical shifty Cooper Kupp just to play slot, but I do think they like fitting pieces into that. And Jennings was a different kind of slot. He was more like a tight end slot. And so maybe he slips into the slot. I'm not sure, because it doesn't feel like MVS is a classic slot. I would think Gage maybe more so. I don't know. It just feels like he could be one of those work the middle of the field kind of guys. We know Jauan can. So I felt like asking Shanahan that, but I was asking a lot of questions today. And I was like, I don't want to keep asking questions. And I don't think he would have had an answer. I don't think they have a true slot, is what I at this point. And that there are a lot worse things than that. It's okay. You can just work guys. I was like, have these guys actually any of these guys really been working in the slot as the idea of being the guy in week 1 against Seattle? I don't think so. And then cutting Gage and moving MVS is like, that's weird. My guess is, since you've reported that MVS's salaries are already guaranteed because of the contract with Seattle, if a veteran is on the roster for week 1, his contract is guaranteed. And I don't think they wanted his contract to be guaranteed for the full season. So it's not a big salary, but it's something. Dollars matter. And if you don't think he's going to, he might not be on the team when Cowing comes back, when Robinson comes back, when Ayuk comes back. So that might have been procedural. And, MVS is somebody that I think there's going to be on the team probably for most of the season, and Gage might not be. I'm just curious about the way they work the slot thing, because I'm not sure any of those guys, they feel really comfortable unless they can just bump Jennings into the slot and work it that way. That's a pretty complicated question to ask Shanahan in a presser today. So, but I will be watching.
He's not going to answer it. Yeah.
I'll be watching. I'm just curious about that. Sometimes he gives inklings of it, but I think Gage might be. If you ask me who's going to get a lot of the slot snaps, I think it's going to be Gage. I just think he kind of fits that, work the inside, get the 3rd and 8 catch, while the 2 outside guys are kind of doing their own battles on the outside. So we'll see. That's just a wild guess of mine. And as you've said, maybe they don't go 3 wideouts that very much. Maybe they just run the ball. Maybe they go 2 tight ends. Maybe they keep Juszczyk in the game. And that's one thing I always point out is when go 3 wide out, go 2 tight ends. You do that, you're taking Juszczyk off the field. And I get it. The fullbacks have limited variety in what you can do with him, but he's still one of their better players. So maybe you just go, let's go pound it. Let's pound it. Let's keep the fullback in, or let's go two tights. Don't necessarily have to go three wides. And that might be the way they're doing it. But we'll see. By the way, wide receiver group is the only one that doesn't have a member in the captains. 8 of them. I guess special teams and kicking doesn't, but we'll put that aside. They've got 8 captains, basically the same as last year, with the only, no more Deebo Samuel, obviously, and Diamond Lenore goes in for that. I think that was obviously telegraphed from long ago, back when Shanahan had him speak to the team last year, and it was clearly that Purdy and Lenore were the two kind of 20-something guys he was looking to move up. I think Kyle Shanahan could have written his name in there, and that was the way it was going to be. But it was interesting. No wide receiver, and you can understand. Ayuk is the one with the most, kind of credibility. He's hurt, and obviously has been not thrilled, and the 49ers have not been thrilled with him since his contract situation last year. Jauan Jennings would be second up, and obviously was not going to be a captain this year, and may never be. Ricky Pearsall is the guy they like, and that's the guy I mentioned. Don't be surprised if maybe he's a captain, but to do that right when Jennings comes in probably wouldn't have looked great, and I get it. Pearsall hasn't even gone through a full season. So let him get through the full season. I think Pearsall is going to be a captain next year if all goes well. I think that's the way they've sketched it out. But we'll see. Any surprises for you in the captaincy? Anything that you would want to talk about over those 8 guys?
No. I wanted to ask you, in your heart of hearts, do you think that this is a true vote, or does Shanahan have a kind of predetermined 8 captains, and it's more like hardcore communist country where they're not really counting the votes?
Shanahan, you commie. I think this time they all knew what it was going to be, so Shanahan probably didn't have to affect it. But as I joked last time, I don't think it's that much of it's not that ridiculous to say that if Brandon Ayuk ended up as one of the top 8, he was not going to be listed as a captain. Like there's certain things that Shanahan's not going to do. Like if Javon Kinlaw had ended up 2 years ago as one of the captains, he would not have, as a vote, would not have been one of the captains.
I don't think Devondre Campbell was getting
Devondre Campbell would not be getting one. Like there's certain people who are not getting captains, and they all know it. I just think they all understood. It's up to Kyle how many he wants. Like he's done 6 in previous years, and then just last year he went to 8, and this year it's a common sense who you're going to take away. I guess you could have pulled Juszczyk or McCaffrey out. You have 2 running backs and no wide receivers representing captains, but you get it. I do think that Shanahan lets it be known what he wants and generally gets it, or just takes the vote and kind of just does it his own way. But I can't imagine Lenore wouldn't have got enough votes. Like he is definitely a rising leader on that team. You can see it, like, future captains, Pearsall, Pooney, I think is a future captain. Michael Williams, who you keep telling me is a great guy. I could see him. And, he's got his locker near Bosa's, interestingly.
Yeah.
And CJ West and Alfred Collins are all the way opposite side. Is interesting. I think they want Bosa and Michael Williams to kind of be a tandem. I think they feel that energy. Poor MVS has the locker in between them.
He got the worst locker.
Reporters are there for both of them.
And then John Weeks, the long snapper, has got this fantastic locker, like right on the side.
Yep.
I don't know why the long snapper gets a super good position.
That's a Tabor Pepper locker. It's just inherited. But then Purdy's on the side, on the very end of that block. So MVS, I think, was realizing on Monday going, this is probably not going to be the greatest spot in the whole world. But you also get to be next to Michael Williams and Nick Bosa. And that's not terrible because you are really feeling those two. Bosa talked at his locker today. I talked to him a little bit afterwards, hopefully for my podcast, but I wrote a column. He feels, you can see it. He sees it's been invested in him. You're going to lead this group. He has to lead this group. Is it going to be Kevin Givens? No, it's going to be Nick Bosa. He's the only guy, only mainstay from a year ago or especially from 2 years ago. This is his room. He even said it, right? And then he kind of, our room, but it's his room. They're looking to him. They want him to show them how to do this. Michael Williams would be really smart to do that. And I'm sure he's doing it.
Yeah.
And we've taught, they're all really, motivated guys. And Bosa's feeling that. I think he feels re-energized by that. We'll see if he stays healthy. We'll see what kind of season he has. But I think he's set up to have a monster season. I didn't even really get into that in the column. The column is just like him talking about, what the challenge is as a group, as a team, what he felt like while they were getting rid of all these defensive linemen. Like, he's like, Mom, what are we doing here? He did admit that he did think that. And then he just said, you know what? We got to reload. We got to get younger. You got to do it. And you got to have guys flying all around like other teams have done. And he's clearly impressed. Mykel Williams, number one. That's no question. And then seeing Collins and West do it in the exhibition games, I think he's been impressed by that. He did point out he's not seen Mykel Williams in a game. Yeah. Of course, Mykel Williams hasn't seen Bosa in a game either. Bosa didn't play in the exhibition season either. So it's just interesting. And I do think the 49ers kind of want Mykel Williams. You go attach yourself to Nick Bosa. That's not a bad place to start. And he's clearly done that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that change that you referred to, I don't think is over. I think on Sunday, your starting defensive tackles are going to be Jordan Elliott and Kalia Davis. Kalia Davis had been dealing with a groin injury. He was full participant today. So I think those are your starters. Both of those guys, plus Kevin Gibbons, who might come back around midseason, are scheduled for free agency in March. And we don't think the 49ers are going to pay a lot of money. Maybe one or two of them come back on a sweetheart deal, a minimum deal. But they are basically, going to transition to this young group. And you mentioned C.J. West. You mentioned Alfred Collins. They picked up a guy from the former Jacksonville Balkies, Jordan Jefferson, who's just a year older than them, who they also have liked for a while. And I think that they hope that he figures into the mix too. So that's three defensive tackles who are 23 or younger. And that's what they're hoping. That's the group. Mykel Williams, these three guys who will rotate. And then Nick Bosa is the gray hair of the group. That's the future of that defensive line.
Elder statesman Nick Bosa. I think he's getting. He's still got to adjust himself to that. He's still only 27, but by far the most experienced player in that room. By far, the guy that is the leading edge of this defense and has been. But just think of it. When he was drafted, he's next to DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, Dee Ford. And he's 21, and now he's those guys. And it's just an interesting dynamic. I did ask him about watching, his $34.5 million a year salary, which was number one for defensive players and non-quarterbacks, getting just blown away by a bunch of Justin Jefferson. And then obviously you've seen a bunch of the TJ Watt, and then Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons just exploded. And he was like, I love it. I love seeing that. You're supposed to press it. When you're in that situation, he told Micah Parsons, you got to press this for the people coming after you. And like Bosa did after a long holdout, he did 2 years ago. He's not likely to make $47 million like Micah Parsons, because you do it because you're 20. You get it because you're 26 years old, and you're going to get 10 more years out of it or whatever you are. And he's, when he comes up again, 28, 29, when it's time to redo his deal, he probably won't get that kind of money, but he'll get close. And I just see this like him kind of like, yeah, this is the kind of a second stage and the next stage of his career. And if the 49ers are good again, he's going to be a main reason why. It's interesting kind of dynamic. And that's kind of what I want to talk to him about. And I think Shanahan is really pointing at obviously Warner and Kittle. It's always those two guys. Lenore, McCaffrey, Purdy, but Bosa, like he's the guy that, they look to because he's so good, right? That's how locker rooms work. Trent Williams, but they cleaned out the defensive line group. So it's just, he said, yeah, Trent's got McKivitz and he's got guys who've been there. I don't really have guys who've been here, and they got to figure out how to do it by watching him, Kosaric and others, but by watching Nick Bosa. And that's a fascinating thing. And if he has a monster year and they're really good, he's going to be another candidate. He's going to be candidate win NFL Defensive Player of the Year again. I really think he's on that track. And I just say, as I'm saying that, I did not put that really in my column, but I do believe that he from everything you look at him, I think he's really going to be on that track. We'll see what kind of sacks he gets. Sometimes sacks come randomly, but I think he's going to be at the peak of his game this year.
If he does have a monster season, like you're predicting, aggregate him, by the way.
Yeah, go good.
Does he? I mean, does he make noise about a new contract at that
Yeah,
point?
I mean, I think it may be at the end of the year. Can't do it now, but I think he'll have 2 years left, two or 3 years left. A lot of those fake years, it's hard to see in the contract that are void years. I think he'd be interested in it. Yeah, I think he would be, because you got to do it when you're younger as opposed to when you're older. And he's not, these new contracts aren't just topping his deal; they're blowing it away. So at some point, you got to say, okay, Nick, you've just won another Defensive Player of the Year award. You're the 7th highest paid defensive end right now. Maybe we can make you the 3rd highest paid. I don't think he's getting 47. Again, you get 47 because you're 26 years old at the time. He got 35 and a half 2 years ago because he was 24 or 25. That, you get it because you project to be so good so long. But I could see that happening. Yes, that's why I kind of asked him about it. And I don't know what the number would be. And the last thing 49er fans want to hear about, and probably the last thing Jed York wants to hear about, is Nick Bosa looking for a deal. But we know the Bosas; they know their worth. They know
Absolutely.
and how to leverage
this. Stand pat.
Yeah, and you know how good that they, what a difference maker he is. So we'll see. I think it's certainly in the air if he has a monster year, that could be something that could be addressed again. We shall see. I'm not predicting that. Don't aggravate me there. But I do think that is something to be paying attention to if he has a monster year. And listen, the 49ers will want him to have a monster year. Well, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want him to be worth a $40 million a year deal? That might jam up against some of their other financial questions, but maybe part of the cutting this year was worrying about things like that. Brandon Ayuk's not getting a new deal, but they did Purdy, they did Warner, they did Kittle, they did McCaffrey last year. I don't know if they have to do that one again. If Bosa has earned himself a new deal, whenever it is, I don't think that is something that should kill the 49ers. That's something they should be happy about.
He said today that, Defensive Player of the Year, those types of accolades are all based on stats. That you need basically sacks for a defensive end. Do you think that, you mentioned 2019, his rookie season, he's got Buckner, he's got Armstead, he's got Dee Ford. Goes into the season this year with Jordan Elliott and Kalia Davis and Michael Williams / Bryce Huff. Do you think that the supporting cast is good enough to support a monster year? Or, if I'm the Seattle Seahawks, I'm looking for 97 on every snap.
No question.
And I'm chipping in, and I'm doing all the things that frustrate pass rushers. And teams have gotten good at kind of staying away from especially when it's just one guy. You can game plan to that guy. You need multiple guys in order to really have an outstanding pass rush. And I wrote a little bit about Bryce Huff today. I think that he's, if there's a candidate to sort of have a sleeper season, like a big season, he'd be the guy, because I think he's in the right defense, and he's been healthy since the spring. He's practiced in the spring and the summer. We've talked about this a lot. Guys who practice in the spring and the summer always do well, certainly to begin the season. I mean, you just have that momentum. We see it time and time again, and he's one of those guys that have been there, gotten a lot of snaps, gotten kind of readjusted to the Saleh defense that he was in New York, and where he had 10 sacks a few years ago. So that to me is sort of like I said, the dark horse, the sleeper type of standout season, and that would absolutely help Nick Bosa as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's 2 reasons why I think Bosa, let's say 15 sacks. He's done that twice, I think, in his career. Obviously, the big, huge one, 19 and a half. And I think another one was 15 or 16. And the others have been in the 10 to 9 range, which are solid, if you have other people getting sacks too. One of the reasons is Bryce Huff from the other side, where there's going to be quarterbacks flushed at times by Huff, or there's just more focus the offensive line has to take on another guy, not named Nick Bosa. The second one is practical. They're playing the freaking New Orleans Saints. They're playing Carolina. They're playing Jacksonville. how many sacks can you get against those teams? Not only should you have a lead and make them pass, those quarterbacks can run into sacks, right? Or just fall down into sacks. So when you play terrible teams, the sack availability is so much more just there, where you just, if they're going to be dropping back and having Spencer Rattler as the quarterback or whoever, I mean, like, there's sacks there. So 49ers have to have leads. Part of the reason why they didn't have as many sacks last year is they didn't have leads. And I think a better overall pass rush with Bryce Huff, and we'll see what Mykel Williams and the rest can do. And I just think the opportunities are going to be there, and these quarterbacks are going to might be falling. Cleveland Browns, there's
Baker.
just, I mean, there's just a lot of guys. Not, that's the wrong team. Baker Mayfield.
No, they play the Buccaneers.
Oh, Buccaneers also. We've seen. There's just Indianapolis. They play Indianapolis, right? I mean, it's just like they've got these terrible teams on their docket that I think will lead to a couple sacks, just like walking into some of these terrible quarterbacks. So, and terrible offenses. So yeah, I think 15 for Bosa would not be wrong to say that would be a number for him, even if he misses a game or two. I just think this is a schedule set up for a pass rusher. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but if you're playing well, these are teams that give up sacks, and these are quarterbacks who get sacked. So maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But I could see 1 in Seattle and 2 in New Orleans. He's already got 3 after 2 games. I could see something like that happening.
Wow, this is going to be played in the New Orleans locker room.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler is going to get.
This is it. What are you talking about?
He's going to get psyched up for that game because
Kellen Moore, known for being a Bosa stopper in his schemes. Could be wrong, and then we saw friggin' whatchamacallit get 3 sacks in the first game in Pittsburgh a couple of years ago. And what did Drake Jackson? And what did that mean?
Drake Jackson,
yeah, make nothing. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I just got the feeling that we're in for a rather large Bosa season. And
so your over under for Bosa sacks in 2025 is 15.
I'd say
or 14 and a half sacks.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd officially put that number, but I'd say if you ask me how many, if I was being conservative but also aggressive at the same time, if feeling good about it but not giving a crazy number, I'd say 15. Yeah, 15 is a good number. Like it's what great pass rushers get when they're having a good season. It's basically 15.
I would take the under on that one.
It's a big number. But I just almost won a game, I think, is a fair thing to say for somebody who's making almost as much as anybody in football. Myles Garrett's about there. TJ Watt's always about there. Like that's about the number. Sometimes they get 12. Michael Parsons is 12, 13. But I just feel 15 for Bosa. I don't think you can say 19, 18. Those are, you have to kind of luck into some of those. But I'll say 15 for Bosa. Just get this out, aggregate this 15, guaranteed by Kawakami, and we'll move on from there. And once we hit 15, then I'll say, listen.
This reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where somebody promises that Paul O'Neill will hit 2 home runs for a little boy in the hospital.
Yeah. Costanza.
Paul O'Neill is very outraged that 2 home runs were promised. So poor Nick Bosa now has to live up to 15 sacks is a lot.
It's a lot.
I mean, 10 to 13 is a great amount in this day and age. But
it's a lot. It's a lot.
The pressure on.
Yeah, I think it's a high number. That's how you get in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Frankly, that's how you do it. So I'm sorry, there's a shadow that's coming right across my head here. So I'm trying to lean away from it. Also, I should say, technically, I lambasted Matt Barrows' technological setup because the sound wasn't coming across to me very well. And it still might be your fault, but I have to say it might not be, and probably is my fault, because the same thing happened when I was listening to Marcus Thompson just a little while ago on another show called Warriors Plus Minus. And so I believe it's mine. So I apologize if I truly screwed that up to young Matt Barrows, who I know took it very hard, and his laptop and his microphone were not at fault in this, I believe. But you set me up because you screwed up the microphone 2 times ago. So I was like just ready to say, it's got to be you again. You're messing things up.
That's not an apology when you excoriate someone at the end of your apology.
Well, I heard things that may or may not have been what I should have heard. So Matt Barrows, it's not your fault. I'll make that aggregate that everybody. Matt Barrows, not his fault.
Tim Cook and Apple, because I've got a MacBook, are going to take that to their legal department.
I have
It
Apple.
was all slander.
I have Apple stock, so I'm all in there.
All right.
I don't have an Apple computer, but I do have Apple stock. Let's take a little break. 2025 season beginning. We've had so much stuff going on. We really haven't able to talk about the big picture of this. We've talked about it. I mean, young players, we'll see what happens. But kind of as you look at who they are, where they are, what the goals are, do you see this as a playoff team, Matt Barrows?
Do I see this as a playoff team? Yes, I do. Like I said, I think that the way the season will play out, I mean, and this is ideal, is that they're going to struggle over the first half of the season. I think they're going to struggle in some basic things like stopping the run. I think the Seahawks are going to test that right out of the gate, right in week one. They've got a new offensive coordinator who runs the Shanahan system, this, that, and the other, and they just want to be more balanced. And so you're going to see a lot of play action. You're going to see a lot of Sam Darnold boots, things like that. And, we talk about these young guys. The young guys aren't going to be great to begin the season. They are leaning on these young guys. And I think that Mykel Williams is going to be fantastic against outside zone runs during his career. But in week one, I mean, you can. It reminds me of that game that they played in Minnesota in 2018. They opened the season in that dome. It was loud. They had a lot of young guys. Fred Warner was a rookie, and Fred Warner played well, but he also made a handful of mistakes, and that's what you expect. That's going to happen, but. As the season goes on, the idea is that those mistakes become fewer and fewer, and the defense gets better as a whole. And then you're also getting Brandon Ayuk back. I mean, we're watching him run routes, basically go through individual drills with the rest of the wide receivers. I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like he's very far away. From playing. I mean, he has to sit out 4 games, so a month. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's back on the field, at least getting eased into things shortly after that month. Maybe he misses 5 games, maybe he misses 6. But I would say for the back half of the season, they would have Brandon Ayuk back. And then Demarcus Robinson. I'm just saying that this team should be better in the back half of the schedule than they are in the first. And by the way, the back half of the schedule is also easier.
Home games, right?
Lots of home games. So most of the travel, I think they go to Indianapolis late, maybe Cleveland November 30, and that's it as far as long home games or long road trips. So that's how I see it playing out. I think people's patience will be tested. I think fans' patience will be tested. If this team starts out 3-5. What are they doing? They squandered their Super Bowl window. They're squandering Trent Williams' career, Christian McCaffrey's career. But I do think that they'll start to make up ground later.
I agree with you generally. I mean, it makes total sense, except for how crappy that's. Even early on, even the road trips are not that hard. At New Orleans, week 2, Like they got Jacksonville here in like week 3, whatever that I should be looking at the schedule now, but I'm not gonna. I'm kind of going through it in my own season prediction, which is probably going to be out Friday. It's hard for me to find losses there. You have to give them some. They're going to, but like they're at the Giants. Obviously, they hate that stadium, but the Giants probably are not great. They might be okay. They're not great. Russell Wilson there will be very interesting. But then I think the next one's at Houston. Probably not that great. I mean, won't be an easy game. I might pick that as a loss, but it's not a super tough game. It's just hard to find really, really tough games from them. Whereas last year, they're throughout the schedule, and they just don't have that this year. Doesn't mean they can't blow these games. They lost some games that were really ugly last year, but they were competitive against the Cardinals. Lost 2 games to the Cardinals, but they weren't blown out, and they beat the Seahawks in Seattle. And this is a 6-11 season. So if we're thinking they're a little bit better than that or a lot better than that, you're looking at 9-10 wins. And I'm thinking 10 wins, maybe 11, even if they're not very good, just because the schedule's so bad. They do have 9 road games, 8 home games, as all the NFC does. So you're not really losing pace in that one. Everyone's got 9 road games that they're competing for playoffs. They don't have an international game yet again. There's just some things. They don't have the terrible rest disadvantage this year that they've had the last few years. In fact, they have a rest advantage. So I just think it sets up for them. We'll see on the injury luck. You never know, but I think they're going to be okay. I think they actually were, when they were healthy, were not terrible last year. They blew games, but they were not terrible. They outgained a lot of their opponents and still lost, which shows how they just let games slip out of their hands, which is bad. But I think they're okay. I'm thinking 10 or 11 wins. See what happens in the playoffs. I certainly don't think they're going to make a Super Bowl run, but I don't think they're outclassed by anybody in the division. And to me, that's the most important thing. They were 1-5 in the division last year. That cannot happen again. Can they go 4-2? Can they go at least 3-3? And that immediately brings their record up to 9, almost immediately 9 wins. If you can get it to 10, get to 11, you're in the playoffs, see what happens there. And the other thing is, I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. I just think he is. The more I look at last year, the more when he didn't have his weapons, when everything was going wrong, when he was getting criticized, and to put up a 96.1 passer rating, which almost the Trevor Lawrence has never done, other guys have never done, to have a career 104.9 passer, which I mentioned, which would be the all-time best if he could qualify for the passing total, which he might do it this year. He's just good. He's a good quarterback. Not saying he's a great quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback. He's 3-0 at Lumen Field, by the way. What road quarterback can say that? He's never lost in Seattle. We've seen great 49ers go up there and get teams get up there and get broken. And maybe Purdy loses Sunday. He hasn't so far. So the baseline for the 49ers is pretty good if they can stay healthy. We don't know, but I think they're a pretty good team. They went through a lot of weird stuff to get to this point, and maybe it doesn't all come together at once. But even if they lose to Seattle, they've got Jacksonville and Arizona after that. And New Orleans, Jacksonville, and Arizona. It's there for them to be 2-2 and not be that great. And they could be 3-1 and maybe should be 3-1. So that's a long way of me saying I think they're decent. I think the schedule sets up for them to be able to take advantage of that. And we'll have to play it by ear, week to week. But this game against Seattle is a big one, Barrows. They win it, man, they could be 4-0. They really could be. I don't think they're going to be, but they really could be. Almost should be. Maybe you shouldn't say that they're going to beat Seattle, but if they do, and I'm going hard on the 3-0 Brock Purdy in Seattle, it does set up for them. And even if they lose, it's not terribly set up for them.
Wow, this is the most optimistic I've ever heard.
What's the schedule?
What have you done with Tim Kawakami? Where's the Jake Moody blowing field goal?
That starts happening, you'll start hearing it from me. Believe me. But it's a schedule, Bear. It's a schedule. I'm giving them like 2.5 extra wins just because the schedule. And you rarely can say that with a schedule. But getting the NFC South and the AFC South, who are historically bad, at the same time, and also a 4th-place schedule, while your division opponents have to play tougher schedules. This is hand delivered to them for just them walk into a 10-win season. If you're going to walk into a 10-win season, you can get 11. And you get 11, you're in the playoffs. Not saying they're going to be a good playoff team. I'm saying they're going to be in the playoffs, which for them would be a success in a year that I don't think anybody realistically, even inside the building, is planning for it to be a Super Bowl team. Be a good team. See where you can go from there.
With players, you see a pattern, and I think the players are starting to see this with 17-game schedules, that when you play a lot of snaps and you have a great year, you're healthy for a year, it takes a toll on your body, and you are not as good the next season. And there are lots of different factors in that, but you saw it with Christian McCaffrey. He's Offensive Player of the Year 1 year. He barely plays 4 games the next year. I think that holds true for a franchise as well. The Chiefs are the outlier there, but you see these teams, good in odd years and bad and even years. And, it's about rest, what you just noted. It's about schedule, which you just noted. And, it's about attitude. And you just go into the season after a bad season, you are much more focused. You're not feeling great about yourself. You are correcting mistakes, and you end up doing better. So I do think that vibe is there. And I wouldn't have said that last year at this time. It was an odd vibe. I think you remember it. McCaffrey didn't know what was going on. Trent Williams didn't know what was going on. Brutal schedule, so many primetime games, including week one, and then week one's on Monday. So all of a sudden you've got a short week right off the bat to begin the season. That's the worst game to have to begin the season, the Monday night game. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. They could do it. They should do it. The issue is that there's a big gap between the classes on this team.
Yeah.
That you've got this upper class, you got these guys living in the penthouse, and then you got the guys who are just starting out their careers, and you don't have a lot of middle ground there. And that's how quickly those rookies, those second year players can move up in that apartment building is going to determine quite a bit. I just wrote my own column here. I've got a great analogy going.
The tenement building run by Matt Barrows. No, and listen, here's where I get critical. They could have kept the middle class, much of the middle class. They could have kept those, the 8th through 11th floors of the 16th floor building. Then they chose not to, for reasons of their own. I've been very critical of it. I will continue to be critical of it. I don't think they needed to do it, but they do have some young players. We'll see if they do. We'll see if they stay healthy more than anything. I think they could have given themselves many more options to make sure that these guys were good, to make sure they stayed healthy. They didn't. Okay, let's see what happens. It looks good for now. If they're healthy, if they're good, it's fine. They should speak positively. And if it doesn't, then we'll start criticizing them. We'll start analyzing why this all happened. So that be granted, that part, that's pure me. That's all me. I absolutely do believe that. For now, we don't know how the injuries are going to go. We don't know how the young players are going to go. And I do think the top end talent, I mean, you still look around that locker room, Barrows, and you see McCaffrey and Kittle and Trent and Bosa and Fred, and you go, this team, Juszczyk, you go Lenore, you go down the line. There's still a lot of really good players. Not as many as they used to have, and they're older, but they still got a lot of good players.
I agree with you. It'll be interesting. Let's talk about Sunday's game. I think we're starting to kind of see who's going to be on the field and who's going to be in what role. Like I said, Kalia Davis practiced in full. The guys who were limited were Jordan James, the rookie running back, Dominic Pooney with his knee, and Jauan Jennings with his calf. I think Jauan Jennings and Pooney are absolutely playing and starting. But I do think that Jordan James, who missed a lot of training camp, is probably one of your inactives on Sunday. So your guy, Isaac Garendo, who you asked about today, I think that he now is the number 3 guy, clearly. He's going to return kicks. And like we saw in that preseason finale, he's going to be on special teams as well. So that's a different role for him. And the question is, okay, if he's playing special teams, kind of throwing his body around, how healthy can he be throughout the season? So I think that Jordan Watkins didn't practice today. Yetur Gross-Matos, we talked about the knee brace he was wearing on Monday, didn't practice today. I think that Watkins, Gross-Matos, Jordan James, Drew Moss, that's the undrafted offensive lineman. Jordan Jefferson, that's the guy that they just picked up off of waivers. He's still kind of learning the system. Austin Pleasance, I think, will be inactive. And then one of Sam O or Robert Beal. I don't think you need both of those guys. So I think we know pretty much the inactives. And I think they're going to call up Russell Gage from the practice squad and Curtis Robinson from the practice squad. So those are your 2 Practice squad call-ups. I mean, we're done for the week. We can wrap this baby up.
Well, if you call up 2 guys from practice squad, they have to deactivate 2 more players, though, Barrows.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
They don't get the bonus 48 player active roster. So we can, I think you got them. You got 7 of them. That's for sure. And I don't know, little secret to these beat writers, these little nerdy beat writers. You guys have like a little, right? You're all trying to tell each other who the inactives are going to be before they're named. And I know you and Branch are both pretty damn good at it. So those are, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the problem with this though, is they have like 4 automatics. And that's not a very versatile roster. When
right in week one,
like, in week one, when you got 4 guys who absolutely cannot be active. Like if they have a bunch of injuries in practice and the defensive line, your Turk Gross-Miles still can't play. So that's not great. They're carrying him for whatever reasons. I don't quite understand that one, but they're doing it. And he will not play on Sunday. There's no way he's playing on Sunday. There's no way Jordan Watkins is playing on Sunday. There's no way Jordan James is playing on Sunday. Like these are just automatics. But if they get through this okay, it shouldn't hurt them that bad. But yeah, you got to find out those 2 more inactives for me, because you can't bring up 2 and not have 2 others get dropped.
That's true.
But that's good. That's a good list there. I like having a jump on the inactives.
Yeah, Tim does not obsess about the inactives, but what he does obsess about is pre-practice kicking.
Number 4.
And he charts where Jake Moody is good and where he struggles, and then he balances that against what he does in the game. And he did not look good in the preseason finale warm up, and then that carried through.
He is a confidence guy. Like you can see it. Like he misses one, and then all of a sudden he's kind of staggered for a little bit, and he does miss one a time or two. And then if he's like boots a couple good ones, and he just feels good the rest of the way. It's just, you can really tell. There's some guys you can't. With him, you really can tell like how he's feeling in warmups, and it's like the direction he's kicking. It's like if he's missing left, he's going to overcorrect and miss right in the game. It just feels like that's what's going to happen with him. So,
isn't that a sign of a kicker who's wobbly? I mean, you shouldn't be able to read his poker face. Yes. I mean, he shouldn't wear his heart on his sleeve. It should just be like a golfer. It's just automatic every time.
No
question. Not showing emotion or anything like that.
One of the reasons I don't think he's very good. Like that's one of the reasons. Like it just the overreaction to a miss shouldn't be that dramatic. It should be, okay, I missed, I'm gonna nail the next 3. No, it doesn't matter. Robbie Gould was not the nicest human being in the world. Jake Moody's a pretty good guy.
He's still alive. Robbie Gould is.
He's still not the nicest guy in the world. But the guy just put the ball in the middle of the uprights every freaking time and knew he was going to do it. And I'm not sure Jake Moody is convinced of that. But we'll see. If he proves me wrong, he proves me wrong. All right, Barrows, I think we've talked plenty. We set the scene. You might have another one going up later this week.
Yeah, just sort of end of the week, just dotting the I's, crossing the T's.
Well, Shanahan talks again on Friday, so that's always interesting.
Yeah. And then you and I next week, maybe early next week, will do our annual over-unders where we keep the receipts, as the kids say.
Absolutely.
And then we can bust each other's chops at the end of the season.
No question. We used to do that for a former company I used to work for. And I think I will write up them. Barrows, you're not great at coming up at the categories. If I had to say.
I don't have anybody peppering me with critiquing me like you did. So this is a breeze this year. I came up with
it used to be like
15. Everybody thought they were good.
Isaac Arendo's career year is 275 yards. Will he have over or under? Well, that was his career year. He'll have under. That's like, it was like you always have like that. Nick Bosa set a record for 19.5 sacks last year. Will he have over or under 19? He will have less.
No,
it was his greatest. That's years were always like that.
Wasn't like that. Yeah, you won one year. I won one year, and last year, I think Jimmy won.
I don't think I participated in it last year because I think I had essentially quit by then. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you didn't take part.
Maybe mentally I did, but I don't think the Athletic would have let me make any predictions at that point. So, all right, there's so much for readers and for fans to be looking forward to in the weeks ahead from 49ers Plus Minus. But thank you, everybody. I don't know when we say this. I should. Thanks, everyone, for we are getting an explosion of numbers on the show. I appreciate it. Barrows appreciates it. That's why we're doing many more shows. The numbers are coming. So we know people want this stuff. There's been plenty to talk about. We're not forcing it. That's the other great part about it. But because we're not forcing it, it's just interesting things to talk about. And we will continue to do this. We'll have one over the weekend or maybe Monday. We'll see. We'll see which post game, when we can do it post game. Maybe Monday, but we're both flying, so I'm not sure when we'll do it Monday. We'll see how we do it. And then we'll have another one later next week, and we'll continue that pattern as we go into the season. All right, Barrows.
See you.